Good afternoon, welcome to Footprints Counselling Service. Interesting talks. Today we're going to talk about Erikson's theory of the 8 developmental stages. So that's Erikson's theory of the 8 developmental stages. If you like this video, share it, leave comments on YouTube or on Facebook. And on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now, Erikson's theory of the 8 developmental stages is something that I think we all go through, but we're not all aware of it. There's other models out there, but this one I feel is very useful because it's relatively basic, has important principles that I think we can learn from and apply to ourselves. So we have 8 stages that we pass through, according to Erikson's theory, from birth to death. At every stage, we have different needs. We meet different people that influence us and our behaviour and our learning. Now, stage 1 is from the ages of 1 to the age of 2. And this stage is called basic trust versus mistrust. As infants, we ask ourselves if we can trust the world and is it safe. If we can trust someone, then we can trust others in the future. If we experience fear, we develop doubt, mistrust. The key to our development at this stage is our mother. Stage 2 is from the ages of 2 to 4 years. And in this stage, we look at autonomy versus shame and doubt. In our early childhood, we experience ourselves and we discover our body. We ask, is it okay to be me? If we're allowed to discover ourselves, then we begin to develop our self-confidence. If we are not, we develop shame, self-doubt. At this time, both of our parents are key to our development. Stage 3, initiative versus guilt. This takes place between the ages of 4 and 5. Now, in preschool, we take initiative. We try new things. We learn the basic principles like how round things roll. We ask, is it okay to do what we do? If we're encouraged, we follow our interests. If we're held back or told that what we are doing is silly, we develop guilt. We are now learning from the whole family. Stage 4. Stage 4 is between the ages of 5 and 12. And at this stage, it is industry versus inferiority. Now we discover our own interests. We begin to realize that we are different from others. We want to show that we can do things right. We ask if we can make it in this world. If we receive recognition from our teachers or our peers, we become hardworking, industrious. If we get too much negativity as feedback, we start to feel inferior and lose motivation. Our neighbours and our schools now influence us the most. Stage 5, identity versus role confusion. This stage takes place between the ages of 13 and 19. Now, during adolescence, we learn we have different social roles. We are friends, we're students, we're still children to a certain extent, but we're also citizens. At this stage, many experience identity crisis. If our parents now allow us to go out and explore, we can find our identity. If they push us to conform to their views, we can face role confusion and feel lost. Key to our learning are our peers and our role models. Stage 6. This takes place between the ages of 20 to 40, and this stage is termed as intimacy versus isolation. Now, as young adults, we slowly understand who we are and start to let go of some of the relationships that we built earlier in order to fit in. We ask ourselves if we can learn to love, if we can make a long-term commitment, we're confident and we're happy. If we cannot form intimate relationships, we might end up feeling isolated and lonely. Our friends and our partners are now the center of our development. Stage 7. This is from the age of 40 to 65 years of age. Now this stage is called generativity versus stagnation. I will explain a bit more about generativity because it is a word that we don't use in day-to-day conversations. When we reach our 40s, we become comfortable. We use our leisure time more creatively, and maybe begin contributing to society, as in making donations, doing voluntary work, stuff like that. Our concern is our generativity. Now, generativity is guiding the next generation, so that would be guiding your children or family members or children, young adults that you come into contact with, to let them become fully functioning adults, which is part of our job as humans, whether we accept it such or not. So if we're happy that we're leading the next generation into adulthood in a sensible manner, then we feel happy with ourselves. If we don't, we become pessimistic and experience stagnation. People at home and at work influence us the most now at this stage. Stage 8, which is his last stage, is from 65 to death. And it's ego, integrity versus despair. Now, as we got older, we tend to slow down and begin to look back at our lives. We ask, how have I done? If you think you've done well, we develop feelings of contentment and integrity. If not, we can experience despair and become grumpy and bitter. This is a stage where people get to when they look back, and they can have many, many regrets. Sometimes I think it's good to look at the end of a cycle and work out where you don't want to be in it. Now, Erikson didn't even have a bachelor's degree, can you imagine? And yet he studied, or not even studied, he taught, he was a professor at Harvard and Yale, which are seriously prestigious universities, as we all know, in America. So to recap, stage 1 is basic trust versus shame and doubt. So, stage 1 is basic trust versus mistrust. Stage 2 is autonomy versus shame and doubt. Stage 3, initiative versus guilt. Stage 4, industry versus inferiority. Stage 5, identity versus role confusion. Stage 6, intimacy versus isolation. Stage 7, generativity versus stagnation. And 8, ego, integrity versus despair. Now, this is quite a lot to take on board, but I believe that, well, I had somebody ask me about how somebody could grow up to become an adult, stages that they need to go through. So I hope that you found this useful. You may need to go through it twice to actually be able to digest it, or look up Erikson's 8 stages of development. He also has one on the hierarchy of needs, which is also very important. and influential on society that we live in. Anyway, so till next time, take care of yourself. Make sure you stay positive and tune in to my next video. Take care.